Hey everybody, Braden here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering Game 3 of the Junior Championship Ontario blah blah blah. We're going to be covering Game 3 of another tournament. So here I'm playing with the white pieces against Daniel, and this was kind of a very fiery one actually. This was really interesting because there's some stuff that happens later on that still to this day is really surprising to me. But we'll have to get to that. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6. So we're going to see a Najdorf here. And I played bishop g5. This has been my main weapon for the longest time. Probably one of the longest times I've stuck with something for openings. e6, f4, bishop e7, queen f3, queen c7, castles long, knight bd7. This is just all theory. There's not really much to talk about here. Maybe in the future I'll give a bit of a theory lesson, but it would just make this video way too long. And I played g4. So my opponent plays h6 here, and this is, I don't think it's my first time seeing h6, but this is just an opening I haven't studied, this h6 variation against the Najdorf. So I wasn't as familiar with what to do. I ended up playing bishop h4, and this can be a problem because of the surprising move g5. And this looks surprising because it's just opening up black's king here. But the truth is, the black doesn't need to castle actually. So after f takes g5, it looks like we're winning a pawn, right? If h takes, then we can take on g5. White's winning a pawn in the game. But there's actually really surprising moves here. My opponent played knight to e5, queen to e2, and then knight f takes on g4. And surprisingly, unfortunately, they took on g4, and they're going to be taking on g5 as well. So this is not a good sign at all. I ended up playing h3 here, trying to just provoke them into something. But unfortunately, after h takes g5, they do just get a pawn. So I already misplayed the opening. I could take on g4 here. Though after taking on h4, I don't really know who this favors. Personally, I think this favors black, so I avoided it with bishop g3. And then, you know, maybe I'll go bishop g2, and then I'm finally threatening to take on g4. So my opponent plays b5 here, bishop g2, which now I'm a little bit happier to have bishop g2 in because there's potential threats on the long diagonal. Knight to f6 was played, because finally the knight was hanging on g4, and I took on e5, and I think this is an interesting choice. I think I took on e5 here because I wanted to at least open the d-file to where they couldn't castle easily. I thought if bishop d7 and then long castles, that kind of justifies it, where it feels like I get a little something for the pawn. So I don't think this is the worst idea for me to take on e5 practically. It looks reasonable. But at the same time, my bishop on g2 isn't really doing too much. And the whole argument that is going to be shown over the board now is the pawn worth not castling? And I think the argument is that the pawn is worth it, because I think black is preferred here. My opponent played knight h5. Really strong move, threatening knight to f4, bringing the knight to pretty much the best square it can be on. I played queen f2, knight to f4, king to b1, offering the bishop here. They end up not taking it. I would have been happy to see this, mainly because now I can consider things like h4, try to open the position up. Like bishop d7, I think h4 might actually be a more reasonable move now. Just try to open lines. Also, because the knight on f4 is so much better than my bishop was on g2, I can also consider things like bringing out rooks to the f file and try to target the weak f7 pawn, which isn't really as weak as it looks. But they don't take. They play bishop d7, preparing a potential long castles. I play knight e2, really trying to remove that knight. They end up taking, which I don't feel is 100% correct. I would really try to see if I could get white to take on f4. If I were playing as black, I would consider things like rook c8, attacking the c-pawn. What else? Let's check the engine. I'm actually really curious. Yeah, a5. Which I think is a really interesting move too, because it asks, well, where's the knight going? It's actually not quite clear. And funnily enough, black is winning here. But okay, they took on e2 instead. Took on e2 and a5. I still think black is preferred. They have the bishop pair in an open position. The only thing I have for it is that their king is a little bit stuck in the center, a little bit. But again, I don't think it's enough for the pawn yet. Rook hf1, a4, knight c1, and b4. So I play rook f3 just to cover things and defend things on the third rank, which I think is a reasonable strategy here. And they play queen a5. So the idea is if they can magically just get rid of these two pawns, there will be mate. And it's more likely to happen than something magical. So that's something I have to watch out for here. But I played rook df1, trying to go for counterplay. And they play f6 here. And yeah, I end up playing rook to d1 back. I think maybe rook takes f6 is a little bit more interesting. I think maybe sacrificing the exchange is the best chance, just because after rook takes, at least I can argue that their king still in the center, but now there's one less defender. I don't know how good this really is. Computer's giving like queen b6 and completely winning for black, but I'm just looking for practical chances here, since that I think is really important. But yeah, I played rook d1, bishop to b5 was played, queen to f2, and then b3. And after b3, yeah, I think this is my chance now to eventually sacrifice. So I play c takes, and then after a takes, I should probably play something like a3 and then try to prepare a sacrifice on f6. I end up taking immediately, which doesn't quite work because of a really surprising move, bishop e2. And it's hard to actually find a place for this this rook to go. Rook e1, it doesn't work because after bishop takes f6, like I'll just show it on the board, bishop takes f6. Now, actually, no, it just recommends bishop d3, which is even stronger. Yeah, so actually, yeah, no, that's even stronger. My apologies. Bishop d3 check is just a really surprising and just disgusting move to see, because after king a1, you just sacrifice the queen for mate. And if you take it, then after queen takes a2, king c1, queen a2 check, I believe, or actually rook c8 check is it's more accurate here. You're just winning the queen, I believe. Rook c2 check, and if king d1, then rook c2 anyways, followed by queen b1 will be checkmate. So not really a way to avoid that, unfortunately, which is really surprising. Bishop to e2 is a very hard move to find though. After rook takes f6, my opponent ended up playing rook c8 instead, and I'm really surprised that I didn't play the move that's best here. Again, I'm flicking the engine on here and there, just to see what's going on, because I'm less interested in presenting them like they're new ideas, or like they were the ideas I thought during the game, because it's been so long. But after rook c8, I end up taking on e6, which I think is a reasonable idea. I think knight takes b3 is just clearly the better choice, though. And I'm still not really that afraid of the pawn, or the rook sacrifice here, the exchange sac. I am up a pawn now. And let's just say bishop takes. I'm just down 1 point of material here. If we actually count it, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 pawns, they have 3. And of course, bishop versus bishop equal, knight versus rook, that's -2 for me, and then everything else is also equal. So I'm just down 1 point of material, but their king's stuck in the center. I think I have more than full compensation for it. I think white might even be preferred because e6 is so weak. But I didn't go for knight takes b3, which is really surprising, because again, I think that's just like such a natural move to make. I ended up taking e6, and they made a really cool sacrifice. Rook takes c1 check. And unfortunately, I cannot take it with the rook. I'd love to, but I would get mated. So instead, I took it with the king. And after b takes a2, I had one last chance to find a move, and I didn't. I played king c2, which allowed them to promote and trade things off, which was beneficial for them. But I have the surprising move. I believe rook takes e7 here, and now white is winning. After king takes e7, queen c5 check, queen c5 check, and if king f6 or anything, you can probably just play like rook d6 and you just get in, or even queen d6 check. Yeah, so let's just say king f6 here, rook d6 check. If like king f7 or something, queen d5, you just get in. There will be a mate here eventually, even though there was an exchange sack, but they exchanged sacked as well in c1. So it's equal material here, but of course black's king is being taken for a ride, so this should definitely be a win. I remember seeing this really interesting variation a while ago. It went king f7, I believe, queen d5 check, and then king f6, where now there's no rook d6. And this move rook f1 check, which is really surprising and honestly hard to understand, is winning. Where after bishop takes f1, queen takes a5, bishop takes g2, queen a6 check, or just queen takes a2. You get a position like this, and sure, it looks like, oh yeah, sure, white's winning. Yeah, it's a queen versus rook and bishop, but the material's significantly reduced, and I feel like a position like this is actually quite, honestly, difficult to win. I think this would offer black really good practical chances. Supposedly, also instead, the move queen d6 check is winning just as much. But you have to just repeat, and then you go back into it, where you have to see rook f1 check. And of course, if they don't take it, then the queen and the rook get in, and it's just mate. Yeah, I always thought that was really surprising, but that is an option. But yeah, I blundered with king c2, which is really surprising. Not really surprising, honestly. It's just really weird move where it doesn't really do anything. And after queen c7 check, I played king d2, and they played queen d7, and they actually just take on d1. Originally, I thought they were going to take on e6 here, which I also think just completely wins because, well, they just like won a full piece here. It's technically a minor piece because they did sack and exchange, so it's not a rook, but this is just over. This is just really, really bad. It's not hard to even suggest a good move here because, well, it is lost, so... down a piece, and our king is just as weak as theirs. Actually weaker than theirs. But they took on d1, king takes d1, they promoted, king c2, queen a4 check, king d2, queen b4 check, king c1, queen c4 check, king b1, queen takes e6. So they took one rook, then they took another, and now they're up a full rook and a bishop here. Yeah, this is resignable. I played just for a few more moves. Queen c2, queen d1, queen h5, and after bishop d3 check, king c1, and queen c4 check. I ended up resigning because, well, I'm just getting mated as well now, so not really a point to play on. For example, like king d2, they could go for queen c2. I think bishop e2 check might even be easier just because it wins the queen. Hey, if there's an option between winning the queen or going for mate, hey, a lot of people recommend just going for the queen, and I can't blame them. And yeah, this would just be over, so that's why after queen c4 check, I resigned. So now I'm 1 out of 3 in this tournament. I believe there are 2 more games to go. So strap in, and that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I thought that was a really interesting sacrifice, the rook takes e7, and I thought that the mishandling of the opening was really unsurprising. I tried to make it a point not to study too much opening theory, but I think I have to remember that after h6 here, if I check the explorer, yeah, bishop takes f6 is something that should just be played. You get a position like this, and like h4 or whatever. This is the way to play. because if you don't, then we get the positions like in the game with g5, and they end up either winning a pawn, or I think there's also the move knight h7 here, which is really annoying. I don't know if knight h7 works here. I think there might even be g6. Yeah, I think g6 works, so don't listen to me there. This is a move that can pop in sometimes, which is really annoying. Yeah, I think this is winning. Computer says it's winning, which is really interesting. So obviously that h7 isn't working here. I know it works in some positions, but whatever. Whole point is we lost, or I lost. You guys didn't lose, don't worry. I lost, and I think a big part of it was because I didn't know the opening as well. It's easy to say that, oh, you know, like I lost in this position, so it's the opening's fault, or like, or you know, a lot of people will say things like that where they kind of blame their losses on the type of opening they play. Like if you play like a Sicilian and you lose in the Sicilian, and you're like, oh, I suck at the Sicilian or something. I think that's an unfair statement, and sometimes, most of the time, it's not even true. However, here it was a mistake that happened directly out of the opening, and I think that's a problem, because I should probably have an idea of what's going on and what the plans should be. So that's just a takeaway here for next time. Make sure that at least if I'm about to play an opening, that I at least have an idea of what the plans could be. So that's it for today, and I will see you guys in the next game. Bye bye.